My grandfather used to say success is like a glacier, what the world sees as small compared to the foundation beneath. I never truly understood his words until I became that glacier myself. I'm Lena Morales, and this is the story of how I went from being the embarrassment of my sister's glamorous world to watching her carefully polished image fracture in one unforgettable night, from a walk-up apartment above my family's Cuban bakery in Miami's Little Havana. I learned what sweat equity meant before I even hit double digits. By age 9, I was prepping pastry boxes and memorizing regulars' names. By 13, I was tracking inventory and catching accounting errors my uncle missed. "Leneo con estos números," my grandfather would call out, waving a sticky notepad. I'd hop over, eager to dive in. "We're spending too much on guava puree," I'd note. "But if we bulk order with the cafe across the street," he'd chuckle, tapping my forehead. "Business brain on a child's shoulders," he'd say. "You'll make something big, mate." While other kids played soccer, I ran margins and read about scalable operations. My parents worked sunrise to midnight to fund my scholarship at NYU. I owed them more than just good grades. At 23, I built a data-driven microloan platform that gained traction in immigrant communities. By 28, it became a multi-million-dollar venture, Solera Capital. Still, I kept quiet, preferring the shadows. That's when I met Ryan. It was at a tiny used bookstore off Coral Way. I was in yoga pants and an old college tee, skimming finance articles on my tablet, when he clumsily knocked over a stack of books. "Whoa, sorry," he said, reaching to help. "No worries," I replied, laughing. "I'm Lena." "Ryan, let me buy you a cafecito for the mess." That cafecito led to lunch, and eventually everything else. Ryan wasn't chasing IPOs. He was a public school civics teacher, grounded, genuine, and deeply committed to social equity. He cared about people. When Ryan proposed 6 months later, I said yes, without hesitation. My family was thrilled. Except for my sister, Camila. Camila and I had always been different. She took a more traditional path: business school, corporate ladder, sharp suits, and sharp elbows. As the marketing director of Vallon & Cross, one of Miami's top investment firms, she thrived on prestige. And she made it clear that while she loved me as a sister, she didn't quite respect me as an equal. "So," she said during a family dinner at her parents' house in Coconut Grove, swirling her wine like a judge at a tasting, "you're still running the bakery and your little app thing?" I could have told her that little app had just signed a multi-year contract with one of the largest private equity groups in the Southeast. But I didn't. Maybe I was still holding on to the quiet satisfaction of being underestimated. "I'm still involved in both." "Yeah," I said, sipping my cafecito. "Well, someone has to keep the pastries flowing," she said with a smirk. "I mean, not everyone can land a C-suite track position." Herman jumped in with her usual diplomatic tone. "Camila just closed a huge campaign for Vallon & Cross. The CEO personally thanked her." What they didn't know was that Vallon & Cross had been licensing analytical tools for my company for over a year, and were currently in talks to expand. "That's wonderful," I said genuinely. Camila beamed, assuming victory. Months passed in that familiar pattern. Camila subtly putting me down at every family event, and Ryan gently encouraging me to brush it off. Then came the announcement. Camila was hosting a gala to celebrate her promotion to senior director. At the planning dinner, she turned to me with a smile like a blade. "Lena, since you've got experience with events and food service, would you mind helping manage the catering crew?" Mom clapped. What a perfect idea. Lena runs a business, she knows logistics. I met Camila's smug gaze and smiled. "Of course, I'd be happy to." "Of course," I said calmly. "I'd be happy to help." Later that evening, Ryan tried to pull me aside, guilt clouding his expression. "You don't have to go through with this," he whispered. "We can tell them you're sick or had a work emergency." But my mind was already spinning. "No, I want to help," I said gently. After all, it's a big night for Camila. Everything should be flawless. What no one at that table knew was that just that morning, I'd received an intriguing email. The CEO of Vallon & Cross, yes, Camilla's firm, James Vallon himself, wanted to meet the elusive founder of Solera Capital, me. Apparently he would be attending tonight's celebration. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. And for the first time since my sister's relentless jabs began, I smiled. Not politely, not to keep the peace, but a smile born of anticipation. Camila had no idea that her carefully curated celebration was about to turn into something much grander than a promotion party. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't payback, it's revelation. And tonight promised a spectacular one. The Whitmore home had been transformed into something between a luxury showroom and a gala. Doreen called it classy and elevated. I thought it looked like Pinterest met Wall Street. Crystal stemware lined every table. Ice sculptures glistened in the South Florida heat. A harpist played near the garden fountain. I couldn't help thinking the event budget might outstrip Camila's bonus. "Lena," she called, striding in with the confidence of a queen. Her silk gown shimmered under the lights. "The catering staff is waiting. Try to keep them in line, and please," her eyes flicked to my modest black dress, "stay behind the scenes." I nodded. "Of course, Camila. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly." Ryan squeezed my arm. "We can leave now." I smiled. "No need. Everything is going exactly as planned." In the kitchen, the catering team looked overwhelmed. Camila had apparently demanded last-minute changes again. "Miss Morales?" a young server asked nervously. "Your sister wants the champagne served exactly at 8:15 for her speech, but also wants ongoing tray service, and we're short 2 servers." I gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry. I've handled more chaotic nights in a bakery with no air conditioning. Let me help." If you've ever been underestimated by someone who should have supported you, stick around. Because what happened next didn't just change the room, it changed the game. And if you want to see how quiet power speaks loudest when it matters most, make sure to subscribe to the channel. The next part of this story is one you won't want to miss. For the next hour, I worked side by side with the catering crew, coordinating timing, plating hors d'oeuvres, and ensuring champagne kept flowing. All the while, I kept an eye on the guest list, noting each new arrival. Camila floated from circle to circle, sipping too much Prosecco and laughing just a little too loudly at her coworkers' jokes. "Did you see Lena?" I heard her giggle to a group of sharply dressed executives. "My sister. She's helping the catering team. Honestly, it's where she feels most at home. Poor thing." A round of polite chuckles followed. "Some people just aren't made for this world," she added with a theatrical shrug. Our mother, Rosa, chimed in sweetly. "We've always tried to include her, of course. It's what family does. But with her background, well, we can only do so much." I passed another tray of canapes, quietly observing as executives from Vallon and Cross trickled in. At 7:55 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from my CFO. "All signed, everything's in place, we're greenlit." I smiled to myself, right on cue. Camila, now flush with drink and praise, addressed another group. When Ryan first introduced me to his girlfriend, my sister, I thought he was joking. A baker/applicant prowler? But our mother says charity begins at home. Speaking of charity, Rosa added, "We're thinking of helping her with a small down payment on a modest condo. Not too close to Coral Gables, of course, but something manageable." Just then, a stir swept across the room. James Vallon had arrived. Camila nearly tripped over her heels in her rush to greet him. "Mr. Vallon, we're so honored to have you." Dressed in a bespoke navy suit, he scanned the room. Then his gaze landed on me. His brow furrowed briefly, recognition flickering. Camila laughed nervously. "Oh, don't mind her. That's my sister Lena. Just helping with the service. Let me show you the marketing deck I've prepared." "Actually," James interrupted, still staring at me. "Isn't that—" I passed my tray to a waiter and stepped forward. "Lena, please," Camila hissed. "Mr. Vallon doesn't need a drink. Just go back to the kitchen where you—" "Hello, James," I said evenly. "Thank you for coming tonight." His face lit up. "Mrs. Morales, I didn't expect to see you serving drinks at your own celebration. My own? Camila's voice rose sharply, brittle with disbelief. Well, yes, James Valen continued smoothly, given that Solera Capital has just acquired a controlling interest in Valen and Cross. I assume this event was organized to announce the merger. He turned to me, smile restrained but amused. Unless you wanted to keep that under wraps a bit longer? Silence fell across the entire estate. Even the string quartet stopped mid-note. You could hear the clink of ice in untouched glasses. Camila's flute of Prosecco slipped from her fingers, shattering across the marble floor. There must be some mistake, she stammered. Lena. She's a baker. She runs that little shop in Little Havana. James chuckled softly. Mrs. Morales is the founder and CEO of Solera Capital, which, as of today, owns 51% of my firm, and, by extension, your department. He turned to me again, eyes gleaming. Those data stream optimizations you recommended? Absolutely brilliant. Our engineers couldn't stop raving. Across the room, Rosa grabbed onto the edge of a chair, pale and speechless. This can't be. Lena doesn't. She couldn't be. Oh, but I am, I said quietly, but in the stunned silence my words echoed. Solera Capital has been mine from the start, and as of 10 minutes ago, we officially own a majority stake in Valen and Cross. I turned to face Camilla. Including marketing. Her face had gone pale, her mouth opening and closing with no sound. But all those times you dismissed me, I finished for her. Treated me like I didn't belong, like I should be grateful just to stand near your world. Ryan pushed through the stunned crowd. Lena, why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything? I asked, voice soft. Would you have stood up for me if you knew I was wealthy? Because you didn't when you thought I wasn't. He stepped back, speechless. James cleared his throat. Well, since everyone's gathered, shall we make it official? Solera Capital's new leadership of Valen and Cross. Gladly, I replied. Then I turned to Camila, smiling. I believe you had a speech for Forgive It. Would you like to give it, or shall I? Camila trembled, then fled the room. Rosa followed in stunned silence. I lifted a champagne glass from a passing tray and gently tapped it. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, stepping forward, if I may have your attention. The ripple from that moment would shake my family to its core, and we were just getting started. Ryan had drifted toward the back of the room, looking dazed. My mother, Rosa, was nowhere in sight, likely having gone after Camila. My father, Hector Morales, who'd always been the quietest at gatherings, stood by the cocktail bar, nursing an empty glass and staring into it thoughtfully. After the formal announcement, James Valen pulled me aside. Well, he said, eyes twinkling, that was one of the more entertaining business reveals I've ever witnessed. Though I have to ask, why let them think you were just a baker for so long? I sipped my champagne, letting the question breathe. Because people reveal who they are when they think you're beneath them. He nodded. Well, their loss is our gain. I look forward to working with you properly, this time. As the party wound down, Camila reappeared. Makeup patched, composure forced, and fury barely restrained. She stormed straight toward me. You humiliated me, she hissed, in front of every major contact I built. No, Camila, I said, my voice calm. You humiliated yourself. I simply didn't stop you. I'll resign, she snapped. I won't work for you. That's your decision. But before you walk away, understand this. Every major firm in Miami already knows what happened tonight. Your comments about people like me while insulting your own CEO? That won't go unnoticed. Her shoulders sagged slightly. What do you want from me? I want you to learn. Starting Monday, you'll be working with our community outreach team. We're launching a program to support local restaurants and small businesses with better financial tools. She blinked. Reporting to who? To my mother, I replied. She still runs the family bakery. By choice, not desperation. She'll be leading the initiative. Camilla's mouth opened, then closed. Then Rosa appeared right behind her. Lena, Surely we can talk this through privately, she said, her voice cracking. We're family, after all. I turned to face her fully. Family? For 3 years, you made me sit with the catering staff, cropped me out of photos, and talked about me like I was a charity case. When, exactly, did I become family? We didn't know, she murmured, that I had money. That's the point. You assumed I wasn't worth respect because you thought I was poor. That's when Hector stepped forward, setting down his glass. Everyone turned to look. She's right, Rosa. We've treated her terribly. My father, Hector, said, his voice low but firm as he turned to my mother. I sat by, he continued, looking at me now, and watched our values decay into pride, prejudice, and shallow appearances. Maybe it took this to wake us up. Finally, Ryan stepped forward. The room had emptied, leaving only the family and the wreckage of assumptions. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. I wanted to, I replied. So many times. But every time you stayed silent while your family mocked me, I realized something. If you couldn't respect me as a baker, then you didn't deserve to know me as a CEO. I love you, he said, desperation thick in his voice. Love without respect isn't love that lasts, Ryan. Every time you let your family treat me like less than human, you revealed what our relationship was really worth. I can change, now that I understand. I looked at him, unmoved. Now that you understand I'm rich, that's not growth, that's adaptation. I slipped off my wedding ring and placed it on the edge of the marble table. I filed for divorce last week. You'll be hearing from my attorney. Lena, please. I turned to Camila. I'll be meeting with Valen and Cross's board tomorrow, but you'll be reporting to my mother at the bakery on Monday. She doesn't tolerate lateness. Then I looked at Rosa. The estate looks lovely tonight. You should enjoy it while you can. Her eyes narrowed. The bank approved my bid this morning. It's now the Morales Foundation for Opportunity, our new nonprofit headquarters for training and uplifting Florida's service workers. Their stunned expressions were priceless, but I didn't linger. Outside, the warm breeze brushed past me as my phone buzzed. Coming to the bakery for late dinner? Your father made your favorite. I smiled. Be there in 20. 20 minutes later, I was back where it all started, at my parents' bakery, eating empanadas and laughing about the evening's chaos. People like that, Mom said, shaking her head. They need hard lessons. Success without humility, Dad added, is like sugar without yeast, looks sweet, never rises. As I helped close up, yes, the CEO of Solera Capital still wipes counters, I thought about the journey. The little girl who once counted coins now counts capital in billions. But my true wealth? It's always been respect, integrity, and the courage to know my worth. If my story reminded you of your own journey, of being underestimated, dismissed, or told you weren't enough, I'd love to hear from you. Share your story in the comments. Let's build a space where quiet strength is celebrated. And if you believe that respect matters more than status, that success without humility means nothing, subscribe and stay connected. I built my empire brick by brick, but it started with knowing my worth. My advice? Never let anyone else define your value. Keep building, even when no one's watching. Especially then, because that's when character, not just success, is truly made.